David Hardy Jr. was a 78-year-old from Eunice, Louisiana. Despite his age, he still had a steady job that he attended 5 days a week. On July 8, 2017, David was following his son home, each in their own cars, from Alexandria, Louisiana. Somewhere along the way, David took a wrong turn. He was never seen again. I'm Ed Dentzel, and this is Unfound. To start out this episode, I'm going to say something that is going to blow you away. We do not have a skeleton inside of us. Yes, it's true. And no, it's not some kind of riddle. Think about it. We are not our skin or our hair or our fingernails or anything else that exists outside of our bones. Nope. We, you and I, and all animals, everything that makes us, us, everything that causes us to live from day to day comes from where? Our brains. And where is the brain? Inside a group of bones, our skull. So a skeleton doesn't exist inside of us. We exist inside a skeleton. See how I did that? And we know what happens to our bones and the rest of us when the brain starts to go. Well, with David Hardy, a few years before his disappearance, he had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, a well-known brain ailment that currently has no cure. But David continued to live his life, even working. Then he disappeared. And the rest of us are left to consider his frame of mind. And now a summary of the case. This is brought to you by my friend Megan Good's website, charlieproject.org. David Hardy was 78 years old, being born on New Year's Eve, 1938. The Wizard of Oz hadn't even been released yet. David is the oldest person to ever be featured on Unfound. He was married and had several children. To support all of them, he worked. Not just for 30 or 35 years like most people do before retiring. David was still working 5 days a week at the time of his disappearance, with no complaints from his employer. However, 2 years before David disappeared, a doctor diagnosed him with Alzheimer's. Yet that didn't slow him down. However, in the months after the medical report, David had gotten lost while going out, and police had to bring him home a couple of times. So on July 7th, 2017, a Friday, David left his house in Eunice to do some shopping. His family expected him back in an hour, but he didn't return. His wife filed a report that night, and David was found early the next morning in Alexandria, Louisiana, an hour away from his home. Police said he was at a Circle K convenience store and couldn't explain why he was there. Officers gave him a ride back to Oakdale, Louisiana, where David's family met them. However, David's car was left in Alexandria. Because of this, David and his son decided to drive back to Alexandria the next day to get David's car. When they arrived on that Saturday, they put $20 in the vehicle, and the two started back toward Eunice. David's son recalls the drive to get the car as being uneventful, and David seemed to be of sound mind, although he never did explain why he got lost. Yet on the drive home, with David following his son, David took the wrong exit. His son turned around to try to find his father, but was unsuccessful. David was never seen again. The next morning, David's Mustang was found on a back street in Elizabeth, Louisiana, a town well out of the way from Eunice. A search of the area yielded no clues. Although Unfound has covered almost 170 disappearances as of March 2020, this is the first in which dementia or Alzheimer's could be a factor. This is surprising, given that I read about several of these types of disappearances every week. However, questions remain that have nothing to do with David's mental ability. Number 1. What are we to make of a witness who says a white male was driving David's car before it was abandoned? Number 2. Should we believe sightings of David in Oakdale and Eunice on the day he disappeared? And number 3. When police first found David in Alexandria and recognized he was lost, why did they not insist on him getting evaluated at a local hospital? David's family believes he met with foul play after getting lost on the way back to Eunice while trying to follow his son. The guest for this episode is David's daughter, Linda Freeman. Unfound news. These 2 items will be numero uno in this section until they happen. First, April 2nd, Northwestern State University in Louisiana. I'll be doing a missing persons presentation to 2 classes there. It will be a combination of the difficulties of investigating disappearances and using cases Unfound has covered as examples of those difficulties. This engagement will be videoed, and clips will eventually be available on Unfound's YouTube channel. Then 1 week later, April 9th, I will be at Nova Southeastern University to be interviewed by Dr. Grace Telesco. The discussion will air on Facebook Live on the university's Facebook page. It will also end up on Unfound's YouTube channel. Next, TV station KETK in East Texas recognized Unfound's coverage of Kimberly Norwood's disappearance. We covered her case back in September 2018. From KETK's own website, they linked to Kim's video on the Unfound podcast channel on YouTube. Thanks to KETK for doing so. Finally, I specifically want to remind everyone of the think tank we do every Sunday evening on YouTube for premium Patreon members. That means $12 a month or more. Your theories and opinions on Unfound's disappearances will get discussed, and those insights go directly to the guests. You can have a direct effect on the cases covered. No other program out there offers anything like this. You should check it out. Where you can find Unfound. Unfound supports accounts on Podomatic, iTunes, Stitcher, Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, Deezer, and Facebook. On Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, please join us on the Unfound podcast channel on YouTube for the Unfound live show. All of you can talk with me, and I can answer your questions. Contribute to Unfound at patreon.com/Unfound podcast. This week, I need to thank Brian. You can also contribute at PayPal, unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. That is also the email address. The new website, theunfoundpodcast.com. Merchandise, the books at amazon.com in both ebook and print form. Do not forget the reviews. Shirts at unfound-podcast.myshopify.com. Cards at makeplayingcards.com/sell/unfound podcast. And please mention Unfound at all true crime websites and forums. Thank you. I'm so happy to have on this episode of Unfound the daughter of David Hardy Jr., Linda Freeman. Linda, welcome to Unfound.
Welcome. Thank you.
Let's start here. Let's just talk about your family. You are the daughter of David. How many kids does David have?
He had 7.
7 kids. All right. And what are the ages, the youngest to oldest? Like, how's the oldest, youngest one and the oldest one?
The youngest he is 43.
Okay.
And the oldest is my sister. She would have been 60.
Okay. And where do you fall in there, Linda?
I am number 4.
Number 4. Okay, so kind of right there in the middle you are. Yes. And how many boys and girls?
There were 4 boys and 3 girls.
Wow. That's a lot of kids, Linda. I have to admit that my biological parents had 4 kids, including me, but that 4 seems like a lot. But 7, that must have been one busy house. One busy home, Linda.
Yes, it was.
Okay, All right. Okay, but did everybody get along? Everybody get along?
Oh, yes. Yes, we did.
All right, great. Okay. So, so he had 7 kids, and let's talk about David. What kind of father was he?
My dad was a good dad, always working, took care of the family, worked pretty much sun up, sun down. Still came home, took care of what he had to do at home. He loved to work in the yard. He loved planting, gardening, doing things with the family. He loved cleaning on his vehicles and sitting outside and just enjoying.
Yeah.
And, he was very close with his neighbors and everything. So he loved his grandkids.
Yeah, I bet. Well,
he's a very hard-working man.
Well, I bet with 7 kids, he must have a ton of grandkids, right?
Oh, yes. A lot of them he haven't even met.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. Would you say that was he a strict dad, or was he kind of laid back, or how would you tell the listeners about him?
Coming up, he was pretty strict. Yeah, coming up. I mean, especially with me, I was daddy's little girl.
Oh, were you?
Yes. So pretty much with dad when I wanted to be there, and I mean, I got what I wanted, but when I wasn't good, it showed.
Okay. So,
it showed.
All right.
He was a funny person. He loved to make people laugh. He loved to dress. He would always have an extra pair of shoes in the car in case to keep the other pair from getting dirty, and he would take the good pair out when he was going somewhere or whatever,
Wow.
Yes, he was at one time very, very neat freak.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So, you mentioned that he worked from sun up to sundown, supported his family. What was his work? What did he do for work?
My dad farmed all his life.
He was a farmer. He was a farmer, really?
Yes.
I don't think you ever told me that, Linda. What kind of farming did he do?
He would plant rice, beans, whatever, and they did crawfish. Yes, he would bring the beans and stuff where they had to bring it, and yeah, what he did.
Okay, so
do the levees.
Okay, so he was into farming. How many acres did he have? What?
Well, it wasn't him. He worked for
Oh, okay.
That did him. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And he did that his whole life. Now we have to remember he was not a young man. He was 78 years old when he disappeared. But and he did that his whole life.
Yes, sir. Whole life.
Wow. Okay. So he worked outdoors a lot.
Yes, he did.
Okay.
He loved the outside.
Okay. And I don't know if we've talked about this. I don't remember us talking about this in our prior conversations, but was he married at the time of his disappearance?
Yes, sir. He was married.
Okay. And how long had he been married?
My dad and mom been married for 59 years.
Wow. Great for them. Wow.
Yes, and I mean, the dad was still working,
Yeah.
Up until his disappearance.
I know that. Yes, I mean, that's wow. 59 years. My mother died in November 2018, but they'd been married 54 years. So 59 years. Wow, I'm very impressed. Okay,
yes.
Well, that's great for them to stay together like that. So he's married. He's supporting his family. He has all these kids, 7 kids. And you're right there in the middle. You're daddy's girl, but it seems like even when you kind of got out of line, he wasn't afraid to discipline you. And sounds like a really good guy. Okay.
Yes.
Now this is going to be something that we're going to talk about, of course, when we end up talking about his disappearance. But let's talk about his health. My dad's 83 years old now. I mean, my dad's in pretty good health for being that age and everything, but even he has his moments and he has to go to the doctor and everything else. How would you explain your father's health at the time he disappeared?
Well, he was kind of getting slower but he still worked. He still, he didn't work, as the long hours that he worked before.
Yeah.
But he still went to work, did things he had to do, even coming home, trying to, cut the grass and all that too.
Yeah.
But I would say he had his aches and pains, in his feet and all that, but he still did what he had to do.
Would you say that he took care of himself? Like, a lot of people, they don't like going to the doctor, even older people. Would you say that, he tried to take care of himself as best he could?
Yes, he went to the doctor and everything. And I mean, and my dad, at 78 years old, my dad had only had a colonoscopy done. And my dad was never admitted into the hospital in all his life. I mean, yes, so I mean, he never was one to say, we'll get colds or anything like that, or have to be admitted into the hospital or going to the doctor until when he kind of ended up with prostate, so such as prostate cancer and stuff like that. But everything went well with that.
Okay. So no heart issues, no stroke issues, nothing like that. Just prostate cancer. No. It seems to me it's pretty common these days.
Yes, and the touch of Alzheimer's, but yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, let's talk about the diagnosis for the Alzheimer's. I'm not going to ask you the month, but do you remember approximately what year that happened?
I'd say about a year and maybe a half before the disappearance.
Okay. So maybe sometime in early 2016, maybe late 2015, possibly.
Yeah, probably between 15 and 16, correct, yeah.
Okay. I have to ask you, were you surprised when you found out about that, or was it something maybe you and maybe your mother and the other children kind of suspected for a while, or was that a surprise?
It was really somewhat a surprise, really.
Was it?
Because it really just came like, the symptoms really came on all of a sudden. We kind of started noticing, but to say that he had been having, things to where we realized it, no, not until the doctor started, he kind of noticed it more when he went for the prostate. Okay. So it wasn't, something that was ongoing.
Right.
I think it's when we found out, that's when it really, surfaced.
Okay. So are you saying that he was diagnosed after he ended up, at the doctor for a different reason? Or was it a situation where some people had noticed some things and said, you know what, Dad, maybe we got to take you in and get you looked at? How would you explain it?
Well, my mom had kind of started noticing a little bit things that he would, do, but it wasn't until, after the diagnosis that we really started kind of, noticing the little things that he would do,
Okay.
Kind of, let's say, where he would go to the store and it wasn't really like he was forget, but he was just ready to go. He's always in a hurry to leave, stuff like that, or he would put keys down or something and kind of saying that, somebody had picked him up, so stuff like that. That's where we really started noticing.
Okay. And I want you to understand, Linda, it's not like we want to get into, most people's, of course, health conditions and medical conditions and things, of course, are very private. And I want you to know the only reason we're talking about this is, is because of his disappearance. Okay, that's the only reason, I think that we just need to understand, being that none of us knew him, and of course, you of course, were his daughter for all these years now. You best can explain to all of us, what you saw, what you experienced, regarding this, and that's all that I'm asking. How did your father, take that news?
He was okay with it. He was just really saying that nothing was wrong with him. He was okay,
Okay.
And when the doctors would ask him questions and stuff, he would answer them all correct. So they really didn't see to where anything was really going bad with him. He just said that he had a little touch of it coming on.
Okay. All right. Did you personally, how often would you see him? How often would you talk to him? Maybe around that time of 2015. How much interaction were you having with him?
I would go, pretty much just about almost every day, pass in and check on him.
Okay.
Sometimes I'd miss a couple of days, but yeah, I mean, like I said, he loved the outside, so sometimes I'd go pick up something for him, but he's doing what he has to do.
Okay. Okay. And, but he kept working. So he got this diagnosis. Maybe, I don't, it seems to me maybe that, maybe didn't, would you say that he took this diagnosis seriously, or would you say that he kind of blew it off a little bit?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, the reason I ask is because, he kept working, and I'm guessing that if his employer saw any signs that he was having any issues, I'm sure the employer would have, said, hey, you know what, maybe it's time to, retire or something like that. I guess that never happened?
No, I mean, he said he was good to work, and which he would drive, almost, from here to Crawley, almost, that's about 20 minutes, or so drive every day back and forth, but, no, he wasn't ready to retire.
Okay. Hey, well, you know what, I love, of course, what I do, and so I can perfectly, understand that. I guess what I'm saying is, I'm saying is that if the employer saw any issues with David, then I'm guessing that he might have, just had to sit David down and say, you know what, probably going to have to let you go, but that didn't happen. Once again, that didn't happen.
No, and I mean, they were, like, a couple of times, he would, that I can remember, he would go to work and, I don't know if maybe I think one time he may have had like maybe a little episode or something, or sometimes the young guys, they would just come and either bring him home or follow him, but it was never to where it was anything that he couldn't do what he had to do.
Okay. All right. Okay, let's move up. So he's working, he's continuing to work, he gets this diagnosis in 2000, let's say 15, but we go through 2016, we get into 2017. We get to maybe the weeks and months before, so let's just maybe go back, the way you remember it, back to the beginning of 2017 now, and your perception, being that you were seeing him often, you talked to him often. In fact, my understanding is you didn't live too far away from your parents?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir, correct.
All right, great. So you get to see them and talk to them often, for holidays, maybe family get-togethers, things. Was your perception that his mental state was getting worse or staying the same? What was your perception?
I think it was getting somewhat, a little worse.
Mm-hmm. Did you have any concerns about him?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Okay.
I noticed that the times that we had to go get him once, the couple of times that he was found, once he would, then go off, the sheriff and stuff would always pretty much say, it's time when he's taking keys or, stop him from driving. And I would, run that by my mom and all of them. But like she said, how hard it would be to get the keys, to take that from him. So, I mean, I can only say so much.
Right. Right. And although I have no personal experience with anybody having something like that in my family, of course, it's a very common, disease, illness, and I've read a lot about it. And, people that have it can be somewhat stubborn, and they want to continue to do their own thing. So that's not unusual. Okay, so he's continuing to do his own thing, even though the people around him, probably see things changing, and his perception is a little bit different. Can you said that there were a few times where he went out and, the sheriffs had to bring him home. Can you just give an example of one of those times you remember from earlier in 2017, just to give an idea of what happened?
Let's see. I know We had one episode around picking, and he had ran out of gas. His truck ran out of gas in the middle of the road. The sheriff came upon him, and he was still sitting in the truck. And he asked him where was he going. He said, "I'm home. I'm about to turn in my driveway," which it wasn't his driveway because. So they helped him, to push the truck on the side of the road, and that's when we had already filed a report that he was missing.
Okay.
So we had to drive. They took him from where that pickings and brought him to Leesville to the sheriff's department. So we drove and picked him up in Leesville, and the sheriff followed the sheriff back to where his vehicle was left on the side of the road, and we put gas in it, and then from there we drove home with him. He rode with me in the vehicle, and he talked, but it wasn't, like our conversation. He was still, to me, was kind of out of it a little bit. But when we first got to the police station, they came and they told us that he may be a little, out of himself. So don't be alarmed if you don't know who we are. Which, I mean, they asked him. He straight up called my mom name, Lily, and he called my sister name, and the guy asked him if he knew who I was, and he said, "Yeah, that's my baby girl, Lynn," stuff like that. And he was good, but the one we went to past Baton Rouge, I can't exactly think where it was, but it was a long ride, and it was a little dark road, and they said he had ran out of gas there, but he was in the truck, and they had the hardest time to get him out of the truck because he didn't want to get out of his vehicle. And I told the guy, he said it could have been a bad, episode there because they had the hardest time getting him out. And when he did get out, he got out with, he always carried a rifle.
Oh, boy.
For hunting. Yeah, for hunting.
Yeah.
So he said, thank God it was them because they were older and more experienced rather than being a rookie. Yeah. Because it could have been, but he said after that they talked, he joked with him and everything like that. He kept trying to offer him things. But, other than that, he wrote back with me again.
Yeah.
And, yeah, but I mean, like I said, he would never leave his vehicle. He would always just sit in the truck or whatever, the car.
What would he say about these things later? I mean, do you believe that he remembered them? Did he remember them happening? What would he say? Would he say, "Well, I just got lost," or he didn't want to talk about it, or?
No, I know, like I said, the episode coming back from past Baton Rouge, he just kept saying, "Lynn, why would the doctor's sending me to a doctor for this time? Why are you sending me to a doctor way out here?" I thought, it wasn't in his norm,
Yeah.
So, and then he slept a little while, but other than that, no, he didn't. Okay. He would never really talk about the drive that he would take, even if you would ask him, he wouldn't, no.
Okay. Is it your perception that he would usually be found far from home, like an hour away, or sometimes was he found very close to Eunice, where you all lived?
It was always pretty much a distance. The closest I would say was Picking area. That was the closest.
Okay. And approximately how far in time is that away from where you live?
About an hour.
About an hour. Okay. So, all right. So 60 miles away, 50 miles away, something like that. Yeah, okay. All right. So these things were going on in 2017, even, like you said, to the point where some cops showed up, and he might not have been as, at least to start in those first few minutes, he might have been a little obstinate or stubborn to get out of the truck, but eventually, everything went okay. Luckily, he was not injured. None of the police were injured. Everything got sorted out there. Okay. All right. So so these things were going on, and do you believe his doctor was aware of them? Do you think?
Yes. Okay. Yes, maybe. Yes, pretty much. Not all that I could. I wouldn't go all the time to the doctor with him. So, but I think when he would seem like when you go to his primary doctor, he would always talk. Thinking he's talking normal. But Dr. Rainey pretty much knew. So yeah, in the last
Okay. All right, let's move up to this. So we've talked about a little bit of 2017. He's had some episodes where he's gone out, not come back, but he was found with his vehicle. He never left his vehicle, and he's brought back safely. We come up to the day before David's disappearance, which sounds to me like one of these incidents. And can you explain what happened July 7th, 2017, where David was going out to the store, and what happened?
Well, he left to go get, he said he was going to get some Dr. Pepper. And he did get Dr. Pepper and some other things, but he didn't come back home. So we went, looked for him, and filed a report. Normally he would be found, within a couple of hours, but this time here it went longer. It was between 1 and 2 o'clock that morning. Wow. My mom and them got the call that they had found him in Pineville. So the police said that they would drive him closer. They would drive him to Oakdale in their vehicle, and my mom would pick him up somewhere in Oakdale, which my sister said was a parking lot. So they picked him up there, but his car stayed in Pineville, and they brought him back home. He was okay, and that morning, my mom said he was, talking normal and everything. And then he realized his car wasn't there, so he wanted to go get his car. Okay.
And this would have been like a Saturday, right? July 8th was a Saturday. The next day was a Saturday?
Yes.
Okay. If you could, being that most of our listeners are not in Louisiana, could you explain, your parents live in Eunice, Louisiana, and you said Pineville, which my understanding is near Alexandria, Louisiana. Well, how far is that from where you live?
About an hour and a half. About an hour and a half.
Okay, so he was going out to the store, didn't come back, which I'm going to say the store was maybe at the most 15, 20 minutes away, and then he ends up an hour and a half away.
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you. And what was he doing? I guess there was maybe be on the lookout for David Hardy. And what was he doing when he was found, like you said, early morning, July 8th, so 1 or 2 in the morning? What was he doing when he was found?
Well, the police found him at a Circle K in Pineville.
Okay.
He was making donuts around the parking lot.
Oh.
So they noticed that he was kind of, out of himself. Mm-hmm. And that's when they noticed that there was a report filed, so they could, contacted us. But when my mom and picked him up, my sister Audrey said, and I asked her what did he tell them? She said all he was really talking about was his motorcycle.
Motorcycle?
And yes. He had a motorcycle years ago. Mm-hmm. So at that point, he was going back.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of guys used to ride motorbikes and stuff like that. When you have a motorbike.
Right, sure. All right, so he goes out to the store on Friday evening, does not come back. Your mother lets the police know. He's found an hour and a half away doing donuts. I mean, I'm guessing like driving in a circle. Is that what you mean, driving in a circle?
Yeah, he was just going around like the gas pumps, going around like he was lost. He didn't know which way to go.
Okay. All right. And so the police get him, and they drive him back to where again, please?
They drive him to Oakdale, Louisiana.
Okay. And then what happens from there?
My mom pick him up, and he goes back to Eunice, to his house with my mom.
Okay. All right. So he's had this episode. Sounds similar to the other times that he's gone out and not come back, but this is an hour and a half away, which is not close. I mean, that would be, if it would be like me from where I live now, being found over near Orlando, Florida, so not close at all. And so, what happens on July 8th? Once they get him home, maybe he gets some sleep or something. What happens on July 8th?
Well, on July 8th, he slept, he got up, and they were all in the living room talking and stuff. And when he went outside, he asked about his car, and and why his car wasn't there, and they said they had to, he had to leave it where it was in Pineville. So he said he wanted to go get his vehicle. So my mom contacted him to bring him to get his car. So that's when my brother drove and came out to Eunice to bring him to go back to pick up the vehicle.
Okay. All right. And so that's what they did. They took the hour-and-a-half drive from Eunice up to Pineville, which is north of there. I've seen the map, north of there by an hour and a half. And they go up to get his car, which I'm guessing was still at the Circle K?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I know that you've talked to your brother. Of course, you sent me a message yesterday, and we're doing this interview on March 10th, 2020. But yesterday you sent me a text. Maybe just shortly, if you could explain. I know you weren't there, but what did your brother say the discussion was like? An hour and a half is a long time in a car. What did the two talk about?
Well, he said they held a normal conversation. He said he was in his right mind.
Okay.
They talked about normal stuff. He wasn't talking out of his head or anything like that.
Okay. All right. So they drive up there for an hour and a half. They get to the Circle K, and what happens after that?
They get the car, and he said that they put $20 in my dad's car and $20 in his truck, in David's truck. And then they each get in their vehicles, and my dad was following my brother David back, to come back home.
Mm-hmm.
And he said they were going to take the exit. I think it's 49, I think. I'm not sure.
Okay.
The exit to come through Lucis, I think it was. But my dad exited off on Broadway or something like that, he said. And he was behind him. He said he saw when he took the exit, but he couldn't, turn around or anything.
Right.
So he had to continue forward until he could get another exit. So when he did get the exit, he went back to try to find him, but he said he searched around for over an hour. Wow. And before calling my mom on him and stuff, but he couldn't find him.
Wow. And and once again, from most of the listeners not familiar with that area, these exits that you're talking about, of course, going north up to Pineville, then coming back south, how far out of Pineville did this happen? Was it like right away, or was it like a half hour into the drive? Do you know?
Like right away.
Right away.
Yeah, it's like right away.
Right away. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so please.
He even said that my dad had the car wasn't on empty before they put that $20. He had less than a fourth of a tank in the car already.
Okay. So we would have had plenty of gas to get home after filling it up with $20, of course. I mean, $20 is going to be, 8 gallons or something like that. That would surely be enough to get back to Eunice.
Yes, correct.
Okay. All right, so that had to be, I'm guessing your brother had to be very worried when he saw that. He had to be, oh no. Oh no.
Oh yeah.
And of course they're like on a highway, maybe a 4-lane or 6-lane highway. And of course, like you said, you can't do a U-turn and everything. That's, you don't want to get in a wreck. And by the time he gets back, you're of course trying to find your father and all the traffic, and it's like a needle in a haystack. Did your brother call 911? You said he looked for an hour. Did he try calling the police or anything, or what was?
No, he just looked and called my mom, and then that's when they were calling. They called me and they asked me because they went and looked themselves, and they called me and asked me to go back to the police station and report that he had went missing again in the Mustang.
Wow.
So I did that, and I gave the young lady the report that to put the plate in for the Mustang again that he went missing in the day before. But come to find out, my niece went to Alexandria on the Sunday, and she found out that the state police said that they weren't looking for a Mustang. They were looking for the black Ford truck. And she said, no, he's missing in the Mustang. But what happened, they put the wrong vehicle in, so that delayed the process.
Right, and I want to talk about that. Let's just be clear on something. When he got lost. When he went to the store and then didn't come back, what vehicle was he driving? The Mustang.
The Mustang, yes.
No, Mustang. And that is the car that he was driving when he ultimately disappeared, the same vehicle.
Yes, correct.
Okay, all right. Okay, so they're coming back. He takes the wrong exit. Your brother tries to get back. He doesn't. Of course, he can't find him. These calls are made. I'm just going to ask you this. I am surprised, and, I have a lot of criticisms for police on this program for the investigations they do at missing persons cases. But to your knowledge, when the police did find him doing these circles in the Circle K, did they not think maybe to call, an ambulance, maybe to check your father out or anything like that? Because I think that might be the proper procedure. I guess that wasn't done. Do you know if that even came up as a suggestion back then?
No, they never told us anything about it, because even the Friday we found out that when he went missing the first time, that he was stopped by a police officer in Pineville, and they gave him a ticket, and let him go.
What kind of ticket?
Speeding.
Speeding?
A speeding ticket, correct, yes.
Wow. Going how fast, do you know?
I'm not sure, but they said he was driving. Yeah.
Okay. So got a ticket. They let him go, and then he's still up there. And of course, that's what ultimately led to the Circle K and everything that transpired since then. I know a lot of listeners are probably wondering right now, did your father have a cell phone?
No, he never carried a cell phone.
No cell phone. Okay. And did he have anything valuable with him besides his car with him when he disappeared?
He had at least about $300 cash on him.
He did. Wow. Okay. All right. So they're coming back. He takes the wrong exit. Of course, he's not found. And what does your family do the rest of that Saturday into Sunday? Do you all drive up there, go looking for him? What do you all do?
We all went all over looking for him. I mean, even his brothers and sisters came out from out of town, and everybody was just in, different areas just looking. Everybody was looking. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody?
I mean, I even went.
Please.
Because I even went the Friday. I went in that area around Oakville and Pineville, but I never heard of Elizabeth. I didn't know anything about that town or anything.
Okay, so you go out there, you're looking all over for him, and now maybe you can talk a little bit about the report. Let's talk about that again. So you filed this report, but somehow the kind of vehicle got mistaken. So please explain that again, if you could.
Yes. Well, he had went missing before, but it was in the black Ford truck. So Eunice PD still had that report from a month or so prior in their log, in their report. So when the young lady said, when I told her about the Mustang, that he went missing in the Mustang, she says, "Oh yeah, I see it. I'm gonna put it in right away." But she didn't do that. She, I guess, clicked the wrong license plate, and so that's how we found out that they weren't looking for the Mustang.
Wow. Okay.
And that went from the Saturday on up until the Monday.
So 2 days. So 2 days. 2 days. There was this mistake on the report.
Correct.
All right. So the cops were riding around looking for a black Ford truck when they should have been looking for the Mustang. What color was the Mustang?
It's gray, silver.
All right, silver Mustang, and okay. All right, yeah, two vehicles, not anything alike. Okay, what were you thinking? I mean, how did you find out that your dad was missing? What were you doing that day, and how did you find out?
Well, I had went to church. I had a funeral, and I noticed that I had, when I checked my phone after putting it back on, I had must have been about 10 missed calls from my mom and stuff. So when I did, I called them, and that's when she was asking me to go. The dad had veered off from my brother David, and she wanted me to go do the police report. So that's how I found out.
Okay.
And they were already looking for him.
Okay. All right, so you're looking for him, and this takes us. You're looking for him. The police are looking for him, but like we've already said, they have some wrong information. The vehicle, which would be the most. Usually, it's the person's description is the most important part, but when persons go missing in vehicles, the vehicle is the most important part, and that got all messed up, and that of course did not help things. Okay. At that time, were you thinking, well, this is just another one of these incidents, and that he would be found fairly quickly? Is that what you're thinking, or at the time you're thinking, well, this feels a little different than all those other times?
Well, we really thought, because he was always pretty much found about the same time. Mm-hmm. But after that, between that 12 and 1 o'clock hit, and it was close to 2 o'clock, and we still hadn't heard anything, kind of started getting worried, and it just kept going, because it would go, like hours, but it would be in the same day. But this went a full day into the next day and still nothing, and we all had searched throughout the whole weekend. Right. Until my niece drove back. She drove to Alexandria to find out, what was going on, and that's when the state police ended up telling her, we're not looking for a Mustang, we're looking for a black truck.
Right, and that's...
And right when they contacted the Eunice PD to tell them to take that old report out, the car had been reported. It popped right up.
Okay, so let's move on to that. So to once again put this all in the timeline, he goes up the first time and he gets lost. Something happens. He's found at 1 or 2 in the morning on July 8th, and then they come home, get rest, and then during the day when it's light out, your brother and David go back up to Alexandria, and then on the way home, once again, this happened. Do you know approximately at what time this happened that your father took the wrong exit? Do you have any idea what time of day that was?
I'd say about maybe 1:30, maybe.
1:30 in the afternoon.
About that.
Okay.
Yeah, about 1:30.
All right, so bright afternoon on a Saturday, and this happens. Okay. So let's move on to this. You mentioned that his car was eventually found, so let's move on. Once everything, the paperwork and the reports and everything got straightened out, you figured out that there was a major mistake on the report. Where was the vehicle found, and who found it, etc.? How did you find out about that?
Once the Alexandria PD, notified them that the plate was punched in, it popped up, and that's how they noticed that it was reported in Elizabeth Parish that a vehicle was in the middle of the road. And so Alexandria drove out there, and they found the car. But then that was found in Elizabeth. He turned it over to Allen Parish PD. Mm-hmm. So the car was locked. So they told us the car was locked. The car was in the middle of the road.
Okay.
But they smelled something with a foul smell. So they had to pop the trunk because no keys were around. And somebody popped the trunk and got in from the trunk. And come to find out when they popped the trunk, it was spoiled groceries.
Oh, right. Right, from when he went to the store.
Friday.
Right, from Friday. That would make sense. If there was any vegetables or fruits or meats or something, of course, milk, of course, that would all start to stink fairly quickly. And so I completely understand that. Elizabeth, once again, just to put this in geographic location, is Elizabeth anywhere near Eunice?
No, it's about an hour and something away from Eunice.
Right. Okay. And I've looked at the map, so maybe I can explain this to listeners very quickly. So Alexandria or Pineville is about an hour and a half, northwest of Eunice, and then Elizabeth is, like you said, maybe an hour southwest, southwest.
Yes.
So it's almost like a triangle, like a big triangle between these three cities or towns.
Right.
Okay. How big? I've looked at the map. Elizabeth, not a very big place.
No, it's not. No.
Okay. All right. So the car was found there. Like you said, the police showed up. Was it a police officer that saw it, or was it a citizen that called it in? Because we have to explain it was kind of on a back road. Do you know who called it in or anything like about that?
It was a citizen that lived back there contacted the sheriff department and said that there was a car in the middle of the road and you could only, go one way because you couldn't pass.
Oh. Okay. So, all right. So, do you have any idea? And once again, remembering that you said that he veered off the exit at 1:30 in the afternoon, do you have any idea how early that the Mustang was seen on that road? When was the first time it was seen? Any ideas?
Around Elizabeth.
Elizabeth. Yes.
Someone said they seen it in Elizabeth about maybe 3, I think it was.
Wow. About
3 on the road, and another witness said she's seen it about between 5 and 5:30 in Elizabeth neighborhood.
Okay, so that would have been the same day that he veered off on the wrong exit. The same day.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So fairly quickly. It wasn't like it was 24 hours later that the car showed up there. It was within hours, like 3 hours, let's
Correct.
say. Wow. Okay.
Yes.
2 or 3 hours. All right. All right. So it was, and then it gets called in, and that's when they figured it out. And by the time you found out about that, had the car been towed away yet, or where was it by the time you found out that it had been found?
Well, I didn't hear about it till later. My niece got the info first,
okay.
And when she got there, the car was still there. She said they had been, they was taking out the spoiled groceries and all that stuff like that.
Okay.
But when we got, they had been towed the car away.
Okay. And if you could just remind the listeners, at what day did the cops go out there and take their first look at the car? Was it that Sunday?
It was the Monday afternoon.
Monday afternoon.
1 o'clock the car was found.
Okay, great.
Yeah, which would be July 10th.
Okay. Now, you did tell me about this, and we have to talk about this. This is where we get into, we don't do theorizing on Unfound, but we do have to talk about things like that. Did you tell me that when the call was made in, this car is sitting out there, did one of those people in that neighborhood say that there was a white guy driving it, not your father, but a white guy driving the vehicle?
Yes, correct.
Okay. How did you find out about that?
Well, when my family went out to do a search, like 2 days later, the young lady came out and she was talking to him, and she said that she had made the report to the police, and she said that she saw the car and another white Impala following the Mustang, and it made like 3 circles around the neighborhood, but the third time the Mustang didn't come out, just the Impala came out. Wow. And she said it was the older white guy driving the Mustang, and another was driving the Impala. So that's the information that she gave us,
Okay, and I'm hoping that the police talked to her. She gave that report to the police?
Yes, she said she gave that report.
Okay. And in talking to this woman, I just have to ask you, do you believe her? When she was telling you, I'm not saying it's not true, but did she sound like, because we hear a lot of stories on Unfound of people saying things that we find out later they're not true. But did you find this woman to be believable?
Well, we spoke to her on several occasions, and every time that we did talk to her, her story never changed.
Okay. All right, so she's saying that when she ended up seeing the Mustang, went around the block, and by the time the listeners are hearing our voices, I'm going to put a map up on the Facebook page and the group and on YouTube as well, so people can understand what we're talking about, how this loop could have been made, and they'll understand how remote this area is, how small Elizabeth is, and I'll make a map so everybody can understand these things. But she's saying she's in her house. She sees the Mustang go by. There's like 2 cars, and then all of a sudden there's only 1 car, and it's 2 white guys in it, and the Mustang's still sitting there. Okay. Did she say if she had ever seen these guys before? Did she recognize them? Had she ever seen that car, that white Impala, in the neighborhood before? Did she say anything about any of that?
She said she never seen it before, and she didn't recognize these guys.
Okay. All right. And what was the condition of the vehicle?
Which vehicle?
The Mustang. When it was found, and like you said, they had to pop it open. I can understand why they did that because of the smell. But what kind of condition was it in?
The Mustang was in good condition. It's just that we was told that the driver's seat was reclined, way back, and my dad doesn't, recline his seat back at all.
How tall is your father?
My dad was at least about almost 7 feet, I would think. 6'5". Wait, let me think. Hold on.
Yeah, was he a tall gentleman, or would you say that he was shorter? Average height?
Was tall.
Average height, or tall?
No, I'm 5'4". I'm 5'4". My dad's way taller than me.
Way tall. So could he be 6 feet tall?
I think he was about 6'2", 6'3".
Wow. Okay. All right, a big fella. Okay. All right. So he's in this Mustang, and you're saying that the seat was kind of reclined.
The driver's seat was reclined way back.
Okay. Anything, to your knowledge, anything missing from the car? You said your father had $300. Of course, the cash was not found, but anything in the vehicle that should have been in the vehicle that wasn't?
Everything pretty much is there, but we found, they said there was some, like 2 garbage bags folded up on the back seat, and like a big 24-ounce can of beer that was not open, but when we spoke to the police about it, they said none of that was there, but they had said it was there before, so I don't understand that.
When did you find out about these garbage bags and this can of beer? Who told you that in the first place?
My niece had told me, and she was at the scene at the time. Yeah.
Okay.
And then there was he had bought a 12-pack of Dr. Pepper, and one Dr. Pepper was missing out of the 12-pack. But, none of that. I mean, when we did the fingerprinting, all they said they found was one fingerprint on the passenger window, on the outside the window, nothing on the inside or anything.
Okay. All right. So I'm not sure what to think of that. So the car is in decent condition. Was it out of gas, or did it have gas in it?
They brought it to the record yard, and once my mom towed the car back to her house, the detective told her, don't mess with the car, don't do nothing. Once she get the key made, contact him. She called for him. He was going to unlock the car to find out whether or not the car was out of gas, which he came, he did, and he told her the car was out of gas.
It was out of gas?
Yes, that's what he told her.
Okay. And we have to remember, though, that your brother and he were at the Circle K, and they had just put $20 in the gas in the car before they left.
Correct, and he had a little less than a fourth of a tank before he even put that in there.
Right. So somebody went through a lot of gas before that car was left there.
Correct, yes.
Well, okay. And like we've said, I mean, at most maybe Elizabeth is 50 miles from where they got gas. Maybe. So, couldn't maybe a little more than that. I guess what I'm saying, maybe 3 gallons of gas to get from the Circle K to where the car was found if it was a straight shot.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to do this some quick math in my head. No way could that's a lot of gas to go through in a very short amount of time, and I think the listeners can understand that. Okay, so you get the car back. Nothing unusual about it except for this reclining seat. All of the groceries are back there. Some of them are spoiled, but like you said, there's one Dr. Pepper that's missing. Might mean something. But we're just not sure. And then there's also these claims that your niece made that there was a couple of trash bags in the back seat with a can of beer, but then the police say that's not true.
Yes.
Okay.
And even when I spoke to one of the witnesses that had first saw him, she told me that the lady detective told her that the car was pushed so close to the bushes, the side of the road, that there was no way that he could have gotten out on the driver's side. But when I spoke to the detective, the lead detective, he said no, that's not true. But the young lady that interviewed her told her that the car was so close to the side that they don't see how he would have gotten out on the driver's side. He would have had to have gotten out on the passenger side. And I mean, that probably makes sense because the road is so narrow. Yeah. There's no way if they left that Mustang in the middle of the road that other car would have been able to go around it. Yeah. Like two cars can't pass at the same time. Yeah.
Right. You can't do a street view. That's so remote. You can't do a street view on Google, but I have looked at it through Google satellite view, and yes, that's the impression that I get as well. It's not your regular city street for sure.
Not at all.
Not at all. Okay, so and it's just left right in the middle of the road, where other cars, if they wanted to get around it, would have really have to squeeze by.
Yeah, they couldn't even pass. That's true. That's why nobody could have gotten through.
Okay.
So that's what, I think that's probably why it was so close to the edge. I don't even know how that other car passed the way they were talking.
Okay. Were any searches done in that area? Because once the people see these maps, there is like trees there. It's like right on the edge of town, and it's trees. There's a pond, just maybe 100 yards or 200 yards into these woods. What kind of searches were done in that area?
Well, he said they did a big search, which they did not include us in the search, but and I spoke to a couple of the volunteer firefighters that searched. They said they only searched for about maybe 3 days. And he kept telling me he had this big old search group came out of Florida to come and search, which that was not true. And we had contacted the Texas Equus Search to come out. But every time they were supposed to come out, for some reason, it was canceled. So they never came out. And when I did ask him, I kept asking him, how far did y'all search? Where did y'all search? Detective finally told me, well, we only searched like a mile north, south, east, and west from where the car was found. And like I said, that's nowhere.
And when you say he, what department, once again, to remind the listeners, what department are you talking about?
Alan Parrish, the lead detective for Equus.
Alan Parrish. And parishes in Louisiana are kind of like counties?
Yes.
All right.
Correct.
They call them parishes in Louisiana. I have to remember that. Okay. So Allen Parish / County is the department that's now responsible for your father's disappearance?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. So do you think that you were getting the brush off there? It sounds to me, I have to admit, it sounds to me like you think that they were lying to you. What can you say about that?
I think, honestly, truly, somewhat, he wasn't telling the truth about a lot of things. And I was told a lot of these small little parishes, counties, they don't want, the big cities or whatever to come in and, like you said, get into their area. So, because they don't want, I guess, them to take over. So every time I did contact the Texas Expert Search, and they said, they come in if whoever's handling the case allows them to come. So when I contacted Detective Greg and I asked him, would they come, if they would come, whatever, if he would allow them, he said, yes, if they come, we will assist them. That's all he kept telling me. If they come, we will assist them. But every chance, it was like 3 times they were supposed to come. And every time it came up in tours, they were canceled. They were supposed to bring those drones to fly over the pond and all this stuff like that. And nothing happened.
Who would Texas Equus cancel, or would the Allen Parish just completely call it off?
I'm not sure. Nobody would say.
Okay, so Texas Equus Search wouldn't tell you either?
No, they didn't tell me neither. No.
Okay. I know that a lot of our listeners know Texas EquiSearch very well. I'm wondering if one of them maybe can get a better answer for you on that. That does sound. They have a fairly good reputation, so I'm a little disappointed to hear that. Maybe somebody who.
I contacted one lady, and she said she had sent one of her men out there. I think his name was Mr. Black, because that's who we spoke to. And she said Mr. Black told her that he went out there with Detective Greg, and Detective Greg showed him and told him that there was no more area to be searched, that they searched everywhere that could be searched, and that's impossible.
Do you know if anybody, once again, once the listeners see this map, they will see this pond that's not too far away from where the car was found. Do you know if that pond, little tiny lake, was searched or not?
I don't believe it was. As a matter of fact, we went out there last year, the end of last year, and we went with the dogs, and there was some dogs that we bought. One of the dogs dove in the lake, and he pulled out a blanket. Now, we don't know who the blanket belongs to, but these cadaver dogs, you know, they're trained for stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we contacted them. They came out. The dog pulled the blanket out, and they had a rake. This man came in with a rake, and the dog, there was a big old tree branch. The dog would not. His owner kept trying to get him to jump on that big old log, but he would not. But when they put that rake on that log, that dog did everything he could to get to that rake because it had that scent from where that blanket was. But like I said, and we had them to Detective Greg and Payne get the blanket. They said they were going to send it to Lake Charles, but they told us Lake Charles did not want to take the blanket because they said there was no blood on it. Then they said they were sending it to the state police in Baton Rouge. Now, I heard from him again. He said Baton Rouge sent it back because they're not going to mess with it. So it's like a blanket that's been sent back. You know, it's nothing.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what to say about that. You know, it's hard to say. Did your father ever have a blanket in his car?
No, not that I know of anything like that. I don't know who that blanket belonged to, but, you know, it's possible it could belong to somebody. It may not be my dad.
Sure.
But it's something with that blanket.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is, the feeling you're giving me, Linda, is that there certainly could be better searches done if you could put that together. Better searches need to be done in that overall area.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Your father, please.
The pond was like 300 feet from where the car was found.
Yeah, it's very close. I know.
And it's a very, very wooded area. Yeah. And, you know, they said it's possibly he just got out the car and walked. No, my dad could not walk through that at all because you have to go through so many ditches. We nearly fell, and, you know, it's no way. And then one night, the detective Greg said he got up out of his bed because something told him to go and search the pond or go look at the pond. There's no way at 2 o'clock a.m. in the morning you would have been able to walk back there without falling over something or getting knocked out. There's no way. So, I mean, it's just certain things that this man would say that doesn't add up.
Yeah. Right.
You know, you can't even sit back there to say you're going to have a picnic or anything. It's bad. It really is.
Okay. I believe you. I believe you.
Yeah, and, you know, throughout the search, when they did the search, he just kept saying that, you know, they can't have nobody else out there because there's so much rattlesnakes. I mean, we went out there finally because they never even wanted to show us where the pond was. It was a man that his mom lives there. His dad had just passed away. He the one pointed us in the direction of that pond almost 2 years after.
So last year.
Yes, we just was able to get to that pond.
Okay. You mentioned we have to remember, David, you're not a young man. He's 78 years old. You could not see him getting into those woods in any way.
No.
Okay.
No, he had bad feet. You know, his feet were bad. And then he had Crocs on at the time. No, he couldn't walk very far.
Okay. But on the other hand, and once again, we know about the sighting of a white guy driving the Mustang, but nobody has ever reported they saw your father walking around those tiny little roads of Elizabeth. Anybody ever come forward to say, you know what, I think I saw somebody that looks like David walking here around the time? Anybody at all?
No, not once.
Not once. Okay. Did you?
Yeah, it was always that way for the car, but never him.
Elizabeth, to your knowledge, did your father know anybody? Had they ever been to? I mean, maybe you wouldn't know every place he's been in his life, but did he have any connection to Elizabeth, Louisiana? Did he ever do work there? Did he have any friends there? Anything like that?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
No.
Okay. So if he once again, I know we have the sighting of somebody else driving this car, but I'm just exploring the other possibility that let me ask you this: in all these other times that he had gotten lost, gone missing, and then been found again, any of those places, the way you remember it, any of them ever near Elizabeth?
Pickings is, kind of in that area.
Pickings? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's a little further over. That's the one we went around Leesville. I mean, it's like pretty much a big circle, really, between like Oakdale, Pineville, Pickens, and Elizabeth. If you think about it.
Okay. And if you can remember these other times that people had to go out and find him, or the police found him and bring him home. These other times, was he found out kind of like what I would call Elizabeth out in the middle of nowhere, or was it more like when he was found at the Circle K? Was he usually found like in a city type area or in the country? Was there any pattern to that?
It was pretty much like, country in the middle of nowhere, pretty much, yeah.
So a little bit of everything. He could be found at a Circle K in Pineville, or he could be found out on a country road.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So he has no connections to Elizabeth, and like I said, I think when the people see the map, they'll understand better what we're talking about here. And like I said, that'll be posted before this interview is heard by anybody. All right, let's move on to this. I'm going to just throw around a couple possibilities here, because this did happen after your father went missing. Leo Laird, who is he?
Leo Laird is the man that was just recently arrested for a murder that was committed about 30 years ago. In the 70s, a young girl, and her body was found in the graveyard. So they just found out that he had committed that murder. And he lives in Elizabeth.
He lives in Elizabeth.
Correct.
Okay, and so are you under the belief that at the time of your father's disappearance, that Leo Laird was a free man and living in Elizabeth at the time?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, we should know, I have had a chance to look Leo up. He had murdered women, not men, but he was eventually caught through forensics, as so many murders are getting caught, 30, 40 years, 50 years later. But I don't know if your father would have been in his demographic as a victim, but it is interesting that Leo Laird had lived in this very small town, very, very small town where your father's vehicle was found. But we move on to this, and we're maybe bringing him up for this reason. Who is Roy Laird?
Roy Laird is a relative of Leo Laird. And Roy lived right walking distance from where the car was found, in that neighborhood.
Wow, that's true. And what Linda says is true. Roy and Leo are related. Any chance that the two were living together in 2017? Do you any idea at all?
No, I don't think they were living together.
Okay. And you had told me, though, that Roy Laird, the relative of the murderer Leo Laird, had video at his house. Why don't you tell the listeners about that?
Yes, we found out that Roy Laird had video footage. He had a video camera on the outside of his home. But when the police confiscated the footage, they said there was nothing on it, and we asked for the footage, but they keep telling us that we can't have it. So I just recently spoke to Detective Greg, and he said that they would allow us to view it. But I mean, within the past 2 years plus, they have been telling us that. So it's a mystery up until now to find out if they're gonna let us see it or not. But yes, and Roy, we were told by Sheila Laird that Roy was not home at the time that the car was there, and that wasn't true. Roy was home when all this took place, because we were told by the neighbor that after the car was there, that's when they left and went out of town. Him and his wife.
Okay. And do you believe that the way you understand it, as far as knowing where Roy lived, do you think that his video camera on the outside of his house could have caught your father's car going by on the street?
I would think so, if that car, like the young lady witness said, that if those two vehicles made 3 circles around, because you see, this is what they told her that the Impala that she saw was a probation officer's vehicle. And she said, no, that's not a probation officer's car. So that's what the police is saying was on that footage.
What are the police? Please say that again. What are the police saying is on the video?
Yes, the police said that the car that she's claiming to have saw was a parole officer that I think Roy is on parole or something, and that was his probation officer. But they told us that first they told the probation officer took the cameras down on the Friday. But now they're saying, if the probation officer took the footage, why do you have it then? You know, it just doesn't make any sense.
So you're saying that Roy Laird was under probation? He had been in jail before and was on probation?
Oh, yeah, he's been in jail many times. As a matter of fact, I think he's serving time right now.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
When you were over there, did you ever take the opportunity to try to talk to Roy Laird, being that he was right on that block where the car was found? Did you ever take an opportunity to try to talk to him?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we spoke to Roy several times.
Did you?
Last time I spoke to him, and I told him what the police had said about the cameras on his house, that they wouldn't give it to us because it was private property. And he said, no, y'all can have it. He said, I'll contact them and tell them that. So I gave him my phone number and everything for him to call me whenever he find out anything. But just so happened, I had a news lady ask for an interview with us. So we drove out there, and she did an interview where the car was found. And he came, walked out there and talked to me. And I asked him why I hadn't heard from him. He said, I called them, but they told me to stay out of it. And that was the last he told me about the footage, you know. But he said, I wanted y'all to have it. He said, I called them, but they told me just to leave it alone, stay out of it.
Well, we have to remember he's a convicted felon, so I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to believe him or not, frankly. So, I just don't know what to think of. I don't know what to think about that.
He was dealing like meth out there. He had the meth lab out of his house, and so you know, I don't know, but I know they're like Roy and his wife are pretty much related to the detectives that handle the case as well.
Yeah. Okay. Since you talked to Roy, did he say that? What did he say is on the video? Once again, what if it's his video? It's his cameras. It's his house. What does he say he saw on the video?
He never said anything.
Is that right?
Yeah, because you see, whenever the car was there, and when the lady witness told them that she saw another car, that's when they took the footage from his house, and because the man at the store, because we had got a witness, a lady that worked there said she saw him come in the store, and he bought a chip and a soda. So the police went and took the store owner's cameras as well, the footage, because he was viewing it, looking at it for us, but he said they came and took it.
I guess I'm a little, all right, so I guess I'm a little confused here. How did the police even know that Roy's house had video?
Well, the detective, I really don't know how they used, but I know Detective Greg is from Elizabeth as well, because, he said from where the car was found, he could have stood in his back door and he could see that road from his back door, and no, that's not true. Because it's a whole lot of woods from the lady's house and where he's saying he lives. You can't even see that next road over with the woods.
I guess find it interesting because usually when it comes to videotape of evidence, especially when it comes to houses, usually police don't realize. Maybe is it possible they drove by and saw the camera on Roy's house and said, hey, maybe that video can help us. Man, that seems a little unusual to me. I'm just trying to figure out how the police got their hands on the video in the first place. In addition, Roy has a camera on the outside of his house. Is he really saying that he didn't look at the video before he gave it to the police? That doesn't sound believable either.
I don't know.
Right?
Because I know, this is what I know. Like I said, Miss Sheila said, I think whenever the police went out there, once the lady gave her a story about seeing, that's when they saw the camera on the outside, because there was another house too on the corner they said had cameras, but he said his camera wasn't working at that time or something.
Okay. Man, I gotta say, a lot of people out here in the middle of nowhere have cameras on the outside of their houses. That is really weird. Okay, it's just, but like you said, maybe they're worried about people coming up to their house, especially if they're dealing drugs, like you said, Roy Laird is. Maybe there's a paranoia aspect. We just had another case of Eric Alvarado where he had cameras inside and outside of his house. He went missing. It must be the new thing. I lived out in the middle of nowhere for 28 years. We never had any cameras on the outside of our house. So I'm not sure.
Inside and out? Wow.
Yeah. Okay, so, but Roy is saying he never saw your father. That you talked to him, he never saw your father.
That's what he says, but the lady witness that said she saw the car, and the following my dad's thing. She told us that Roy and his wife, I think it was just those two, that they went in the house like across the street from her house. It's an abandoned house. And she said they stayed in there hours and hours. And she said when they came out, they was just like raining wet. I don't know if they went, do whatever they were supposed to. But she said when they came out, they were just like soaking wet.
I don't know what to make of that. I don't know if we need to take that part of this any farther. I don't know what to make of that. This woman spying on her neighbors and everything else. But this is the person who says that she saw a white man driving your father's car?
Yes, correct. Yes.
Okay. All right. And is this also the person who claims that there were two cars?
Yes, correct.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to this. You, at some point, got a threatening phone call. Why don't you tell the listeners about that?
Well, we had got information that it's possible that my dad had came back to Eunice on that Saturday. And that he had ended up at the casino. And so we went in there and we went with flyers and stuff to pass out, and we went ask questions. But as we were passing out the flyers and stuff, there was this young lady there and stuff. But I think we were really on something, because the young lady that she had saw him said that she saw him, she spoke to him, but he didn't recognize her, and she didn't know if something was wrong. But she wished she'd have known. She would have contacted somebody. And the lady just kept saying that, you know, that she saw him, but somebody had reported. They heard her talking to this guy saying that, you know what you did, you know what you did. And he asked her what she was talking about, and she said, they know what they did. They killed the old man. So he said, what old man? He said, Mr. Hardy. And he said, Felicia, what are you talking about? I said, yeah, they killed him. So afterwards, we had gotten, you know, and then I got this phone call because I didn't know who it was and whatever at the time. I thought it was my daughters that was calling me when my grandson brought me the phone. And it rang, but the phone had hung up. So when I realized it, I said, well, why would she be calling me? Not to hang up. So I called it back. It just kept ringing, kept ringing. But later that afternoon, I checked my messages, and I heard this message, and it said, you know, you be this. I know where you live. I know where your kids go to school. I'm going to kill them. I know where you do your hair. And, you know, you be, you know, so, and in the ending, before he hung up, he just like he was frustrated. So right there, I knew, because this happened like 2 days or so, 2 or 3 days after we went to this place and started asking questions. So from there, I just knew that we were onto something in Eunice. That it's possible he came back.
Okay.
And I mean, we even got more than that.
Okay, so what you're saying is that somehow after your father took the wrong exit, that day, that Saturday, somehow he ended up back in Eunice at a casino in Eunice.
Yes.
Okay, and then he ran into the wrong people, and this woman says that she knew some people that murdered your father.
Yes, yes.
Wow. Have you kept in contact with this woman since this happened?
Well, I spoke to her myself, as a matter of fact, and when I did talk to her, she just kept saying, I can't give you any names. I can't give you any names. And she started touching, like, you know, her neck and whatever, saying about the tattoos and stuff like that. But afterwards, you know, the guys that we were talking about, just recently, we got a little tip saying that we were looking at the wrong guy, that we need to be looking into the brother.
Yeah, we're not going to get into those names. I have to admit, you know, once again, from my experience, this sounds very, very thin, and so we're not going to get into any names here. Once again, though, how did you even find out about this story from this casino?
This guy who, Tavares, that knows her, he happened to be in there a couple of times when she would get into it with the guy, and he overheard her more than one time. So he contacted my daughter to tell me to get in touch with him, and I did. He let me record him and everything, and, you know, saying that he overheard her, which she drinks a lot, but, you know, I'm believing that, you know, it's a lot of people, it's easier for them to say something when they're drinking rather than when they're sober.
Could be.
And I don't know why she just keeps saying it, you know, just over and over. People are hearing her say that.
And how do you know this other guy who's feeding this information? How do you know him?
I've been knowing him from a young guy.
You've known him for many, many years.
Yes, correct.
Okay. All right, so a guy you've known for many, many years happened to overhear this woman talking about these guys that murdered your father in Eunice. So your father made it back to Eunice and ran into the wrong guys, wrong people. Okay. All right. So did you when this call was made? Do you still have a copy of that phone call? Did you save that audio?
Yes, I do.
All right. I would, if we could find out a way to get me to listen to it, I would certainly like to listen to it for myself. Do you recognize? You
can hear it right now if you want to.
No, it won't play very well over recording. Maybe we could figure out a way that you can. I'll have to think about that. We'll have to talk about that afterwards. Okay. All right. This voice. Do you recognize it at all? Had you ever heard that voice before? Do you believe that is it a white guy or is it a minority? What does it sound like to you?
He sounds like a white guy. He really does.
Okay, and you don't recognize the voice?
No, I don't.
Okay. All right. And when did this call happen?
About 3 days after we went to the casino to pass out flyers and, try to get any information to see if they had camera footage and stuff like that.
I guess what I'm asking is what month and year did that happen?
I think it was in June of 2019.
June? All right, so not even a year ago.
No.
Oh, okay. And would you say that's the only threatening phone call you've gotten since your father disappeared?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I have read, let's move on to this. I have read, like, for example, on the Charlie Project, there was allegedly, let me say that again, there was allegedly a sighting of your father in Oakdale on that Saturday. This is in some of the reports I've read about your father's disappearance. How did you find out about that? Do you know who might have seen him? Anything about that?
It was through a message I think someone had on Facebook. The guy had said that he had seen him. Yeah. I think it was the Saturday, I think. You may not be sure if it was the Friday or the Saturday that he saw him, but he saw him, like, passing on the highway or something by his house.
Huh.
He saw the car, yeah.
Okay. Have you had an opportunity, being this was on Facebook, have you had an opportunity to talk to this guy? Or
yes, we did.
Do you find him believable, or do you think it wasn't your father?
I'm not sure, because he really didn't say nothing. He just said that he's like almost 100% that he saw him, that it was him that he saw earlier that day.
Okay. And in Oakdale, and it could be that, Oakdale is, closer to Eunice. It's not close, but I've looked at the map, and once again, I'll put a map up for everybody. They can follow this. But Oakdale isn't, it's a little closer to Eunice than Pineville is, but, it's not close. So possibly, I guess it's possible. Okay. I just thought we needed to bring that up. This guy's saying that he saw him on the highway?
Yes.
All right. Now, more recently, you said that a bone had been found in the Eunice area. Once again, that's where you live. That's where your father lived. Your mother lives there. What can you tell the listeners about that?
On December 23rd, they found a leg bone by the old dressers in Eunice, Louisiana. It was found near a pond on private property, and it was sent off to Faces, and they did find out that it is a human bone, but we don't know who yet. So that's all that we know so far, but we're trying to get out there to do a search around the area.
Okay. When you say December 23rd, do you mean just like 3 months ago?
Correct, 2019.
Wow. Okay. Do you have any idea how this bone was found? Was it, I guess it was by accident?
I was told that some people were moving a house or they were moving a building on that property, and they came upon that bone.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Being that you've lived in Eunice your whole life, besides your father being missing, are there any other people missing in the area that bone could belong to?
Not in Eunice, no. He's the only one.
Okay. And I should ask probably this, being that they collected this bone. It's a leg bone. It's a human bone, a leg bone. Is your DNA on file, or somebody in your family's DNA on file, so they can match it?
Yes.
Okay. How did you find out about this bone being found? Was it like common news? I mean, was it in the local paper or something, or was that something the police told you?
Well, they started sharing it, that somebody had found, because they said human remains, but When I contacted the sheriff department, he said it was a bone, and it was a leg bone, but it was a bone, but they didn't know at the time whether it was human or not. And then when I did speak to him, he said yes. But they were sharing it like on Facebook and all that stuff like that, and we started getting phone calls about it. Telling us like, sorry, I have our condolences, and we're like, what are y'all talking about? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little quick. You're a little quick on the trigger there to start offering condolences, especially since his car was found in Elizabeth and this bone is in Eunice, even though I know that's where he lives. But still, are you familiar with this area of town, being that you've lived there your whole life? Do you know these people that had this house or this building? What can you tell the listeners about any of that?
No, I really don't. And the way I understand, I don't think anybody lived there. I don't know if it's a campground or what it is, but nobody lives on the property around the stand. But it's a lot of land. There's a big old lake or whatever on that property. I mean, a huge lake. Yeah.
Okay. And did you say you have plans to go out and do a larger search out there, or has that already been done?
Well, we just found out. No, we haven't went yet, but we're supposed to be going out there real soon.
Okay. I guess what I'm also asking is that usually, not all the time, but usually when a human bone is found, usually that automatically generates a very wide search, especially if it's not near a cemetery or anything, that the police, or they get searchers to go out and try to find more human remains, if they think that, it's a bone from a human, whether it's a leg bone or a skull or whatever else. Do you know if anything like that has been done?
Well, they did say they went out there and kind of did a little search, but I don't know if they went out there with the dogs or what, but yeah. But we're supposed to go out there, again.
Okay. And once again, though, this is not like multiple bones. You're under the impression it's just one bone.
Yes, that's what I was told, one bone.
Huh. Okay. Well, I don't know what to think about that. I know that right now probably many listeners are going to go on to NamUs or some other databases and try to figure out if there are any other missing people around Eunice and, that area besides your father, to see, what are the probabilities. It could be he, or could it be somebody else? I'm sure some people are going to do that. In fact, I'm sure I will do that before the episode comes out this Friday myself, just for my own knowledge. Okay, that's certainly something. But, of course, this car is found somewhere else, and this bone's found in Eunice. I'm not sure, what to make of that. Okay. It's we're coming up on 3 years this summer. Linda, what's this been like for your family? Obviously, you have your mother, I guess, is still alive, and then you have all these siblings. I mean, what's this been like for you?
Well, it's been hard. My mom is still alive. And since my dad been missing in 2017, 2018, we lost my oldest sister and my oldest brother a month and a half apart. Then just recently, about a month now, we just buried my oldest son. And I mean, it's just been hard, the part of not knowing, and like I said, there's 2 kids, a grandson within the time that he's been gone,
Yeah.
It's hard. It is.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of loss in a very short time, Linda. A lot of loss.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So I just pray that something good will come out of this, even if it's to give us closure, because the not knowing, that's the hardest, you're just constantly riding around. When you're driving, you're looking on the side of the road, you're looking, you just don't know.
Yep. I've heard that many, 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 many times now, and the listeners have heard it many, many times as well. The not knowing part is what guests continually say is the toughest part of, having a missing loved one, that you just don't know. Some of them, I'm guessing, are still alive, but I'm guessing a lot of them are deceased. But still, it doesn't matter one way or the other.
No.
Families want to bring these people home, and they just don't know what happened. They don't know where to look. They don't know where to go. Yes. Yep. And that is one of the toughest. Being a missing persons expert now, covering about 170 different missing persons cases. It's one of the most difficult parts of being involved in missing persons cases. Is the lack of knowledge of where these people are. Lots of theories. And you should know, Linda. I do cover some disappearances where it seems like it's more obvious that a person was murdered. Like a wife, with her husband. He gets up the next day and says, he doesn't know where she is allegedly. Things like that. Those ones are you kind of know what happened, but you can't prove it. And then you have something like your father's where there's a few different possibilities, and that makes it tougher.
Yes.
It makes it tough. Well, do you have a Facebook page, a website, anything set up for your father's disappearance?
Yes, we do.
Well, tell the listeners about it right now. What's the name?
We have Help Bring David Hardy Jr. Home, and that's on Facebook.
Okay.
And we have pictures on it, with some of the grandkids and the families, just the flyers, things that we did, visuals and stuff like that. So, and when things come up, we kind of try to post, or if people have any information, they'll put something on there. And if we have any upcoming events, say searches or anything going on, we'll put it up there ahead of time to let people know.
Okay. All right. Linda, any last words before we complete this interview?
Really and truly, it's just been real truly hard, because we're always wondering, did he suffer, or did anything that happened, was he alone, or was he just left somewhere? So I'm just praying that we get some type of closure, and that this here, and I thank you for it, that it'll branch out to where people hear, because honestly and truly, the news surrounding areas, they really didn't do too much. You barely saw his picture even, on the news. And when we contact them, they would say, well, it's like old news. We only can post it for so long. And that's hard.
Yep.
So.
Yep, that's, another tough part you said about the not knowing part. But the other tough part, I think, for families is the world keeps spinning. People, other things are happening. The media, there's other media things that are happening, going on, that people have to move on to. And, in the end, of course, David's disappearance is not quite 3 years old. You should know the average age of a disappearance we cover on this program is 20 years old. And, my job is to make sure that David's case doesn't make it to 20 years old. My job is, that's one of the things I say to all of the guests. And, but a lot of these families who've been living with these disappearances a lot longer know eventually people move on, and it kind of sucks. But that's the truth, boyfriends move on, girlfriends move on, but those close, the blood relatives, the sons and daughters and parents, they don't. It's like it's the day after the disappearance, every day of their lives.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. You always think about, what you could have done differently, or if. There's always an if and a but, but.
Yes. Yeah. I hear
things that you don't wish on nobody.
Yeah. I know.
Things to happen like that. And then again, it's other people's experience is eye openers for someone else to be aware, to be alert, to not to do the same thing, to try to correct things like that. So, I just pray that with this here, that'll help someone else along the way as well, to say, well, I see what they went through. Maybe we can do it differently. Take the keys or whatever, you know, get them help early.
Yeah.
Man, because it's hard. It's hard. Oh, Lord, it's hard.
Yeah, it's hard.
You know, the holidays, because his birthday is December 31st.
I saw that. Yes, I saw that.
Yeah, so I mean,
Yeah.
you know, nothing is really the same. It's like you don't even want to live,
Nope.
you know, really, really get together because someone is missing, you know.
Nope, there's nothing to
So,
celebrate. There's nothing to celebrate because he's not there.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So, but to get back with his page, it's the email, you know, help bring David Hardy Jr. home at gmail.com.
Okay, great. Okay, well, I'll make sure that that's all posted for sure. For sure.
Okay, thank you so much.
For sure. And I want you to know, Linda, I say this a lot on these interviews, is that this is just the beginning of us knowing each other. You know, myself and my assistants, we all work for free, and you know, we will be here to try to help you out even after the episode comes out. Of course, me as the main person, you know, any ideas, any brainstorming, you know, you get any information, I want you to feel very comfortable in calling me or emailing me, you know, and telling me, hey, this is going on. What do you think? You know, and I'm always going to be honest with you. Okay? Always.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate that.
Okay. All right. Well, Linda, it's been a pleasure getting to know you, and I know we'll be talking a lot until David's disappearance is solved and he is found, and I appreciate you being on this episode of Unfound.
Thank you. I appreciate you, and I really enjoyed, you know, talking to you and everything, and thank you for considering it.
Well, you're very welcome, and I've enjoyed it too. Thank you.
And that was my interview with Linda Freeman, daughter of David Hardy. I thank her for joining me and all of you on this episode. During the episode, we talked about the threatening phone call made to the Hardy family. Here is a recording of that message. Warning, this message is not safe for work or children.
Hey, I know where your children go to school at. Guess what? They ain't gonna live very long, bitch.
End of message. Delete. Press 7. Resave.
Yeah, I'm gonna kill your bitch. Kill your bitch children, bitch. I know you do your hair out too, bitch. Ah.
My experience tells me this is a horrible prank. Or a wrong number. Why? Because no one, including David himself, is specifically mentioned. But I could be wrong. Now for my summation. I'm familiar with dementia and Alzheimer's diagnoses. My father was actually determined to have dementia like 6 or 7 years ago. It was something my mother and I doubted at the time. And I think all these years later, we've proven to be correct. My dad still has a pretty good mind, although he does misplace his phone once in a while. Why did the mental test he took back then say he had a problem when he didn't? I don't know. But it had the effect that after that he could not apply for life insurance. I contrast the report my dad got back then with the one that David Hardy got coincidentally around the same time. By doing this, and hearing from Linda on what she experienced with David since roughly 2014, I think I can say that while my father's diagnosis was wrong, David's was surely correct. But given that David continued to have a job, and even on the day of his disappearance he seemed to be okay, his symptoms seemed to come and go. Or he was very good at hiding them when he knew something wasn't right. What David couldn't hide, though, was his tendency to get lost the times that he did, including the day before he went missing. What does this mean? What it means is if David didn't leave his car in Elizabeth where it was found, because of his condition, he could have ended up anywhere before someone else took it. In other words, and to use the day before as an example, he was supposed to only go to the store and return, but he ended up an hour away. So just because the car was found in Elizabeth doesn't mean David was in Elizabeth. He could have gone back to Alexandria, or got lost in Oakdale, Or maybe he made it back to Eunice, but couldn't figure out where his house was. To make this even more complicated, even if a white man parked the Mustang on that back street in Elizabeth, doesn't mean this guy did anything to David. It could be that the guy found David's car abandoned and went for a joyride until the gas ran out. So even finding this guy could mean we find out that he didn't have anything to do with David, and he could only be charged with car theft. However, it would help us discover where David ended up after he got lost trying to follow his son, and that would be helpful. On the other hand, it might lead to more questions than answers. We just don't know. It all comes down to trying to figure out the odds of an Alzheimer's sufferer who got lost and just happened to run into the wrong guy or group. I'm guessing that's not very common. Yet it is possible. What might be helpful for the Hardy family to do is to go back and list all the times David had gotten lost, where he was going, and where he ended up. Maybe there is some kind of pattern that could lead them to the most likely area David drove to the day he disappeared, if he is not the one who left his car in Elizabeth. What I'm saying is maybe it's more important to figure out David's frame of mind for all the other times he went missing, and not for the disappearance that led him to end up on Unfound. I'll leave the rest of the theorizing up to you. And that's the program. If you found it informative, please go to the app that you use to listen to Unfound and give this podcast a nice review. I thank you for listening. I'm Ed Densel, and you've been listening to Unfound.